music, athletics, arts, and entertainment. The Desert Tiger Podcast with Colton Geschwadner.
Comedy is a funny business. Not so much in the haha funny way that you would think so, but in the way that the people who perform it go about doing so. There are so many ways to make somebody laugh. Some days, the crowd is on your side and it's really simple. They eat up every single moment and they're with you for the entire journey. Some days, somebody on their cell phone or someone talking to a friend in their crowd can throw off your entire set. Most comedians, these champions of smiles, have learned to go with the flow, conquering this offset with a barrage of humor. Whether it be for 5, 15, or 30 minutes, a good set can take years of dedication, with a ton of soft responses before one is truly ready. And is one ever actually truly ready in a world that turns so fast? I would have to argue yes, because a good comedian can slow down those moments for those who actually wish to enjoy the ride. Stealing the cares of the world joke after joke, using storytelling, events, or personal history, and a little bit of imagination to push it all in the right direction. Amber Harper-Young is a stand-up comic who has spent many years practicing, performing, and molding her craft. Starting out in Toronto, Ontario, where she has worked some pretty interesting jobs that you will hear about in order to support her need, her addiction to perform, while she learned the ropes. Amber quickly rose after taking an introductory course into stand-up comedy and began performing on various festivals and even eventually traveled to New York and Melbourne. After a while, though, Amber's ambitions led her to Vancouver, British Columbia, where the comedic landscape had many, many opportunities waiting for her. Amber quickly thrust her foot in the door of the British Columbia comedy scene by competing in BC's Funniest Female in 2014, where she is the proclaimed, unofficial, disqualified winner. She has continued to perform over the years, creating comedy shows with other Vancouver-based comedians, including The Vancouverite Show, which was actually selected for not just one, but 2 Just for Laughs Northwest Festivals in 2016 and again in 2017. Amber's style of self-depreciating humor immediately connects with the audience as she compares herself to a cracked-out Taylor Swift, among many other comparisons. She continues through her set where if she's in the right mood, even jokes about her mother's cancer and passing are complete fair game. After personally watching her perform, I was more than happy with my first live comedy experience, and I can say for myself, Amber is straight funny, and it is an absolute pleasure that I got to talk to her for this podcast. Welcome to episode 10 of the Desert Tiger Podcast, and I am your host, Colton Geschwadner. Alright, you know, before we get to our interviews, we always play a song. So today, on a day where we feature a comedian, someone who doesn't play their own style of music, we like to feature somebody else, someone who maybe I don't have the opportunity to interview in person. So today on the podcast, we are going to feature a song by Old State. Old State play their own brand of melancholic rock, and they have one goal: to make music that speaks with raw emotion and to be a beacon of compassion and understanding to those who are lost. Throughout the writing of their sophomore EP Perspectives, the band may have gone through a couple of members and a couple of sounds, but they eventually settled on what is the idea of Old State. With influences spanning alt-punk to Midwestern emo to folk, there's no wonder why they had a bit of a time settling on a sound, but I'm glad that they did, and I hope that you are too. David Fernandez, Aaron Buchanan, Skippy, and Shad Hillis have recently recorded a new EP entitled Wait that's going to be coming really soon, but we're going to give you something off of Perspectives. we're going to give you a song that starts off slow and builds up as it goes and sort of shows you all of the influences and abilities of what Old State has in their capabilities. The song that we're going to play for you today is Shorts Guy by Old State.
Desert Tiger Podcast.
All right, we're here with Amber Harper-Young.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to the Desert Tiger Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No worries at all. So, where are you from, Amber?
I'm from Brantford, Ontario.
From Brantford, Ontario. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. I was born in England, in Durham, England.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was only there as an infant, and then my mom and dad flew back with my two older sisters, and out of all places, made their home in Brantford.
Okay, so were your parents originally from Canada, or?
Yeah. It just was like on a whim. They wanted to live in England, and my dad was managing a pub there, and my family was living over top of the pub with my two older twin sisters. So
good environment to raise children in, for sure.
Yeah. You can see some formative things already while I was in the womb.
Well, sometimes where you start off is where you end up, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have any best or worst memories from growing up, or?
Oh yeah, that made me think about this time. It's actually probably a very interesting moment for me because I'm right now I'm a pescatarian, but all my life I've been a vegetarian until like about 5 years ago.
Okay, so for those that don't know the difference, what is a pescatarian?
Pescatarian eats fish.
Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I was an ovo-lacto vegetarian, so I was only eating animal byproducts.
Okay.
And so the memory that I have, I think, when I think about it, it's very traumatic.
Okay.
Memory, and it was a lot of the times our household cats would bring home animals dead animals to show their prize, or to
love me because I've protected you from this bird.
To show their triumphs. And one of the times I was out in the backyard and I noticed my cat was chasing a baby rabbit. And the rabbits. Okay, so the cat was chasing on a very steep hill that was just sort of at the end of our backyard. There was a steep hill and it was like a forest sort of scenario, but there's a fence before the forest. Anyway, on the beginning of the steep incline, there's the chase taking place, the foot chase of the rabbit and the cat. But the cat had already struck the rabbit, and the rabbit's intestines were coming out of its body while it was running. And then I was chasing after the cat. So it's like this. It kind of, now that I think about it, it's sort of funny, like in a Benny Hill sort of way, like this weird chase, this weird sequence chase, but it's also terrifying.
Cat kind of chasing a string of intestines being followed by you.
And I'm screaming, crying, and then, my cat's obviously not stopping from me doing that.
Oh, definitely not.
And then, so that was...
As far as it knows, you're cheering it on. As far as your cat knows, you're cheering it on, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they think, the animals, right? They're very happy with themselves. I think that sort of caused me maybe to realize I was a sensitive person and that I didn't really want to take the lives of animals if it wasn't necessary.
Okay.
Because I've seen some pretty brutal things.
Yeah, no doubt at all.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how that would
a
turn you
cute
away.
little baby rabbit, so sad. So I think that was one of my worst memories for sure. I also saw, there's actually another really bad memory where my sister, she dislocated her kneecap from her.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it went to the side. She was coming off of she was running down a hill into the basketball. There's a hill and then the basketball court, and she came off the curb, and her knee slipped to the side of her leg, where not the bending part, and she tore her ACL. Yeah,
Ouch.
so I was there sort of to see her endure that pain, and then also in the hospital room when they kept to relieve the swelling, they kept taking more and more blood out of her knee. And it was pretty hard to handle.
Yeah, that'd be a little traumatic as well, possibly.
Yeah. I never almost fainted in my life until that point. I had to leave the room because I thought I was going to pass out.
I could believe that.
And then my mom was kind of happy to see that I think she thought I didn't have feelings up until that point.
Yes, my child has a soul.
Yeah, I think she's happy to see I had a soul. Yeah.
It's always a good feeling to know.
Yeah. For people. She knew I had a soul for animals.
Yeah, she does actually care about more than just pets.
And herself,
Yeah. So when did you decide you wanted to get started in stand-up comedy?
In stand-up comedy, it took me a long time.
Or just in comedy in general.
You know what? I will say, in the back of my mind, I feel all my life I have wanted to be making people laugh. In the back of my mind, watching In Living Color and Mad TV and Saturday Night Live, I knew I wanted to do that. And
kind
I
of
wanted
the golden era of sketch comedy there.
Yeah, I just loved all that type of entertainment. I was really big on I was when Jim Carrey first came out and that beginning scene in Ace Ventura, even now when I watch it, I get such nostalgia, from the beauty and simplicity of just him busting up that parcel.
Oh yeah.
It's so amazing. And yeah, so I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to do it, but I just wasn't brave enough to admit it.
Okay.
I think it's sort of one of those things that you do, right, when you know it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So you don't want to admit that that's what you want. You don't want to admit that that's your dream. So
Well, it's hard to put yourself on a stage in front of people and actually present yourself.
And I knew I could do it like in person. Like I did it to my friends. That's how I made friends.
Yeah.
Was making them laugh, and you know, that's just the person that I was already. But to level it up to the like actual real point that it could be, that took a very long time.
All right. So when did you get started, and like what was the process for getting into it then?
Well, first, I think the process was just acknowledging that I was a creative person. Took art, like visual art, in high school. And basically just focused on that. And then a lot of external stuff happened. Like people would tell me I wasn't funny. Are you in drama? Are you taking acting? And like it didn't even really occur to me. Like I was that clueless about myself in a way. And so then when I went to university for fine art, I ended up dropping out. And I think that main thing, the main reason with that was, I didn't have so much discipline, but I think it was just like I was on the wrong path. So way late in the game, like I was dropped out of university, was just waitressing, was just sort of like understanding I wasn't happy with my life. Maybe on the precipice of becoming an alcoholic in a small town in Aurelia, Ontario. It was my first boyfriend. I was living there. And I realized I wanted to go back and go to school and figure out if I could act, or figure out if I could perform, if I had the talent, and if I could discipline myself to a point where I had never been able to discipline myself before. Like, because I could get into university, but I couldn't keep myself there. So I wanted to see if there was another thing that might drive me to the extent of actually being able to like have that concentration.
Okay, something that actually like you had the passion enough for.
Because like with the art, you know, I love art. I've done it all my life. It's very fun for me, but I think I don't know what it was about the art. I think the thing that I need amongst my art is the interaction of people, or the communication with people. And I felt that fine arts was void of that. And so like I found more like when you do ensemble work, that's super fun. And then like also when you're just like talking to an audience, like whether you're doing crowd work or not, you're still talking to the audience. And whether you're like being vulnerable. So I feel like that's just more the person like I naturally was. It took a while. I was about 24. I took a 1-year program at Sheridan. I had this monologue at the end of the year where I went into this weird creative zone and I blacked out, and then I asked my instructors if I should keep acting, and they said, oh yeah, definitely, and get an agent and go to Toronto, and Second City will help you with auditions, so start to take some improv. So I got into Second City. I took the A through E, but then I took the conservatory program there. Where they teach you how to do like a whole sketch review. And so we started doing that. The interesting thing there though was had already started doing stand-up on my own. So I already knew I wanted to do stand-up as well. And I was sort of splitting my focus and really getting into the stand-up, and I got like recognized very early for like this thing called the Tim Sims Encouragement Award. I was nominated amongst like 15 or 16 people in Toronto.
That was back in 2010?
And so that gave me like a little boost of confidence, and them putting the review together with the ensemble. And, you know, I just kept studying improv because I loved it, and also just doing a stand-up. And basically 7 years later, here I am. So in Kamloops with you.
So how did you end up in Vancouver then?
So about 2.5 years into the stand-up, which is probably the hardest 2.5 years of my life, but also, very tough 2.5 years because of the learning curve.
Yes.
It's
of course.
just, you got to get comfortable on stage. You're dealing with so much, but you're also accumulating all your material and like what you'll be talking about for like the next year.
Remembering it on stage.
Yeah, understanding the nuance that you have to bring to like
building it in a routine that actually flows well.
Yeah, and yeah, that was just so hard for me to endure, especially in Toronto. It's such a big pool of talent,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not an aggressive person.
Okay.
Naturally,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to. If you don't have aggression as a stand-up comedian, you definitely have to know how to assert yourself, which is something I also didn't know how to do.
Okay.
So I'm like sitting there, this very laid-back person in a like sort of dog sort of scenario. So it was quite difficult for me at the beginning. But you form like good relationships, and like those are the things I think in the end that sort of get you to like some nice points, some like great memories, and like some just like career sort of I don't know, like benchmarks or something.
All right.
Yeah. So I ended up actually working as a strip club waitress to subsidize my stand-up comedy habit. So the reason why that worked out was because in a few to 4 nights of work, then I could be out those 3 to 4 other nights of the week.
Yeah.
Basically just hustling the circuit. So all the open mics, any like book shows that I had, and then like looking to see like how quickly you could get on transit to those the surrounding shows that you might be able to get a last minute spot on.
Yeah, to see how many places you could hit.
Yeah,
in that
and
short
like just
period.
really, really hustling the scene. And sometimes I would like even take taxis from my work if I was doing a double. I would take, my hour break, take a taxi to and from a show. Like, yeah, just like that's how you have to roll in Toronto. And that's like one thing you really realize fast there. So I ended up meeting my current boyfriend at the strip club I work at. He was a dancer. No, he he was security. So yeah, so we were friends for about a year, and then I just sort of had it with the city. I was living in a rough neighborhood. I was working at this job, which I didn't understand how I had been at this job for like 8 years. Worked in 2 different clubs for 8 years, but it got me through for that little while. So I just moved out here. I heard they needed some like more experienced women.
Okay.
And I heard also that there could be potential for more paid gigs out this way.
Okay.
So I was thinking, if I travel to a smaller pond, where I saw a couple of the comics that had like come out to Toronto from BC. Yeah. And I really did like the style of comedy that was coming out of the province too. So like it gave me an extra like boost of confidence and comfort seeing like this one specific comedian. He was just in JFL last year. His name's Ross Dowd. Okay. And he just had something that like I felt like the Toronto scene didn't have. And also I felt like I had like this basic thing, the basic starting blocks to become a comedian, and the best thing for me to do would be to diversify. And I had no kids, there's nothing holding me there. I've always wanted to see BC. I hadn't even seen it.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So I was just like, why not? And me and my boyfriend moved out here. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, a little bit more room to grow your comedy routine and not as many fish over here, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it worked on a lot of levels. Like it worked in a way where whenever you move anywhere, you get scared.
Yes,
especially
definitely.
As a performer.
I just moved to Kamloops literally 2 weeks ago, so I know exactly what you
mean. Yeah, so like especially doing this right now, it's one of the things that you need to keep doing, and it's also like very important for you to understand now like what Kamloops can offer you that wherever else you lived can't.
Well, it's Kamloops has so many more people traveling through it, and I'm that much closer to Vancouver, which has so many more interview opportunities and so many different musicians and comedians and entertainers traveling through the area, that it's just my opportunities not only as a musician and a promoter, but also as a podcast interviewer. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like I came out here for a number of different reasons. But like something that worked out really cool for me was I was getting on a lot more frequently at the Yuck Yucks in Toronto. And so when I left, when I came out to BC had the Vancouver club, but then also opened a Victoria club and an Abbotsford club.
Oh, wow.
So they already knew me. Then I moved to BC, then they opened 2 more clubs associated with them. I wasn't signed with them, but once I had sort of got my footing in BC, Mark Breslin came out and saw a bunch of comedians and signed me because he already knew me from the last club. He had seen me a couple times, which I didn't realize, which was really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it somehow like it worked out for them to know that I was like committed comic. You know, like that I was in it.
That they could see that you've done it across the country.
And I wasn't like gonna quit anytime soon, and I was a reliable person who they knew can be consistent.
Yeah, well, after 7 or 8 years, you've definitely have to have built that sort of trust in some people, right? And it's good that they have that.
I don't even know if it's full-blown 100% trust, but you know, you got to start somewhere.
Well, and that's it, is you can, even if it's not 100% now, it's building blocks, right? It's still building blocks.
Yeah, so that really worked out well for me, and it wasn't really something that I planned or foresaw, but it was nice.
All right, we're going to take a small break from our interview with Amber Harper-Young, but no worries, because after a little bit of talking, we're going to get right back to it. Winter's on its way, and if you're like me, you need new and fresh clothing to keep you warm before this holiday season. And if you are, look no further than Worthle Streetwear. These guys are killing it right now, straight out of the Canadian Badlands with their simple, sleek, and stylish line of clothes just before the holidays. You heard me tell you how items are moving fast, and I wasn't kidding. The entire Pinkerton line is gone, folks. That's right, gonzo. And that's not the only thing that's sold out so far. But what I haven't told you is that these items are only available for a limited time. November 19th, and it's all gone. That's how unique this is. That's how fresh Worthle Streetwear wants you to be. Limited numbers and a limited time. So hurry on over to worthlessstreetwear.com and cop yourself a pastel pullover with every letter a different color and stitched separately. I already got my negative pullover, so get on over to worthlessstreetwear.com and get your gear today. That's all I have to do for talking right now, so let's get back into our interview with stand-up comedian Amber Harper-Young.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
Okay, so you briefly touched on how BC didn't really have much for female comics at the time when you moved here.
Yeah.
You actually ran a couple shows that featured female comics and actually raised money for female-based charities. Would you like to speak a little bit on that? Like, is the female comic scene here like kind of tight-knit, or?
It's growing, which is really cool. Right now, it's like the biggest in Vancouver that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And in the past, I've run this show called Hardcore Girls, and we've donated to, because I'm a girl,
Obviously.
initially we were donating to that, and I started the show in Toronto, actually.
Oh, really?
Which is cool, but I hadn't really run it like only a few times.
Okay.
Only like 2 or 3 times. And then I thought, hey, like, what better thing to do than promote more women on stage.
Definitely.
So, also I came from like a class before, I think, before I got accepted into the conservatory at Second City. I was always also simultaneously taking classes with Dawn Whitwell.
Okay.
Who teaches this course called Comedy Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 2 courses you can take. Comedy Big Girl is the next one. And I actually met 2 of my very close friends in Toronto, and I'm still very close with them. And they're both still doing comedy. And
that's
one just
good.
performed in Just for Laughs that just passed.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Natalie Norman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's like, it's sort of like you got to bring those roots through. Like, that's something that's just kind of like your responsibility, I think, in a way. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
you know, if you're not staying true to those things. Now, on the other hand, I want to say I haven't produced a show recently, and one reason is because I also see a sort of pattern developing in different communities.
Yeah.
With this segregation of male and female.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm not producing the show anymore is because we should all be harmonizing. We shouldn't be, we should all be equals. We should all be treated the same way. So I feel like, in a way, sometimes doing the all-female show is really sort of reinstating the past.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not allowing, it's causing more of a divide instead of,
I could definitely see that, how it starts to help in the beginning, but almost like as society seems to turn.
Yeah, as much as I want that all lady energy and like that supportive sort of environment, I also have to think like what kind of actual impact it's making in the long term.
Okay.
And I don't know that, as somebody who's struggled for 7 years, whether it be that I'm a female or not, I don't know if I want to keep running it. Like, I think in the past I have, and it's done it's sort of been its positive thing for me, and like I said, it's very true to like how I grew into becoming a comic, but it's also, on the other hand, something I debate a lot in my own head and consider a lot, because it's just like, it's got to stop, it's got to end, like this male female, like it's not even about that anymore, male or female.
No, it's not.
And it's not about like what even body you're capsized in anymore. Like, it's
for a long time there was there was a lot of thoughts about female comedians, but people have started to grow past that, which is a very good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's already very passé. So, I don't mind saying yes to being on an all-female show.
Yeah.
But I definitely just don't want to perpetuate it, the all-female show.
You would rather perpetuate
we belong
equilibrium
alongside men, and
you definitely do.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a matter of sex. It should be a matter of caliber.
Yes.
And hard work and talent, and those are the people who should be on whatever shows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So, when was your first show? Do you remember what your expectation was walking into it, and what was the reaction like?
My first show, I believe, was at Comedy Bar in Toronto. It was one of the Comedy Girl shows that it's like the showcase at the end of the class that Dawn puts on. Now, I had expectation of extreme failure, and that's not what happened.
Oh, that's good to hear then.
It went really well because I was quite prepared and disciplined, which I really didn't see in myself probably before that night. Like, I didn't actually think I was capable of the kind of discipline that I had that evening, which was super empowering.
That's good.
The flip side of it was I blacked out, so like I have no memory.
Really?
Of it.
Huh.
Because what happens sometimes when your nerves are so high is you just don't remember.
Well, Billy Joel himself has that exact same thing where he doesn't remember a single thing he does on stage some nights.
Yeah.
And he'll come off and be like, oh, what did I do? Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a very similar like instance to like my end monologue in college. I had like this weird like, my acting teacher was trying to tell me it was like some kind of weird creative trance you go in. But I didn't black out of that. Like I vaguely remember that.
Okay.
But I felt like I was outside of my body or something. But the stand-up, I totally don't remember any of it. They put it on tape, which I probably will not revisit anytime soon. But yeah, so I had like a DVD of it or something somewhere. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Your style is described as upbeat while still being a little self-depreciating and is based on your life experiences. How does one keep an upbeat energy while joking about tragedy within their life?
Oh, well, that's the only way it works is comedy.
I know, right?
If you don't keep an upbeat energy about the dark things, then it's not comedy any longer. You just come out like, this is the best way to, the best mood you can be in, that's when you tell all your dark stuff.
Yeah.
If you're in a dark mood, you gotta go with the silly, dumb stuff. Because it's just not, it's the way I feel like I operate is that, you know, comedy helps me as much as it helps anyone else. So if I'm like looking to heal myself or like sort of solve a sort of mood blunder for me, it's definitely more interesting for people to watch that way. And it's not going to be funny if you're actually very depressed and you're just sitting there talking about a list of depressing things.
That's very true. It is very true. If you can't laugh at it yourself, why would anybody else, right?
Yeah. The reason why I know that is because I produced this show called The Tragedy Show. And
I was actually going to ask you about that.
I produced it with Alex Sparling, who's now moved to Prince George, I think. Prince George. And I had to work through a lot of material that was like about my mom's death, and
oh wow,
I put myself up to it. He put me up to it. I put myself up to it, but he also was put up to telling the story of losing his eye.
Oh.
Yeah. So we both had very unbearable tasks afoot, and then also anyone on our show that we had booked had quite heavy stories. So that was our big challenge, is like, how do we do this? And they say tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I will say the first and second show were very difficult because it was still too close to the time where I lost my mom. So, so it was very interesting to work through, and very difficult to do some nights.
Yeah.
Some nights, you know, I was in a good mood. You know, some nights I was like not taking it so seriously. But you know, that's also just the process of writing too. So like, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with if it's dark or not. It's just new writing is always hard to work out, and it's not going to be perfect or funny right away. But yeah, so now I try to tell that stuff, those jokes. I have a few jokes that are still in my regular repertoire about my mom, and you know, I have some very happy memories, and then I also have some like dark jokes about her dying. And I only tell those dark ones when I'm being super silly and I'm feeling super, because then no one feels that, you know, heaviness that nobody carries on that weight.
If you're not in the right mood, you might present it wrong in a way that might make people feel a little bit awkward, possibly,
or like make them question if it's a comedy show or not.
True enough.
I don't want to, you know, suffer an audience. Like, I don't want people who paid good money to come to see comedy be upset that it wasn't like happy. So,
That's true. All
but
right.
I will say both, even the non-dust stuff though, I'm quite dark.
All right. Well, I think we've ran pretty much almost as long as you would like to. So if I can fit in one more question, if you could. What is the dumbest rumor you have ever heard about yourself?
About me?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm like that important that anyone's talking.
Might be a good thing.
That's a tough one. Like I said, like when I leave my ringer on, nobody's calling. Like when I'm leaving my ringer on while a show is happening, I'm always worried about it. But I shouldn't be because like nobody's calling me, and it's not because I don't have friends. I have like a few close friends, but I don't think that anyone's threatened by me. I don't think that anyone would start a rumor. If they have, I haven't gotten wind of it. But
It's okay. I've had it once where somebody came up to me and asked me like, "So how are your kids for Halloween? Like, what did they dress up as?" And I was like, "I don't have kids." It's like, "Everybody told me you had kids," and I was like, "What?" Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I wish I had a cool rumor like that. Now I'm like gonna be like upset that this hasn't happened.
Oh yeah, I was like, no, I dressed my imaginary children up as Batman and a minion, like.
Oh man, I'm gonna ask around.
Just
Now
to
you've got
find
me
out
curious.
now.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
today,
you.
Amber.
It was fun. Thanks.
Alright, I want to give a big shout out and a huge thank you to Amber Harper-Young for joining me on the Desert Tiger podcast. We were running on a little bit of a schedule, so we had to tie things up a little bit earlier than we wanted to, but we got you about as much information as we could in that timeline. You can find Amber on Facebook and Twitter at Amber Harper-Young. I highly suggest you go and do that, and if you're out in Vancouver, maybe check out some of her stand-up comedy, as she is hilarious live, as I can attest to. I also want to give a big shout out to Worthle Streetwear. Simple, sleek, and stylish. You can go over and get it at worthlestreetwear.com, but do it before November 19th, before you run out of time. Alright, I also want to give a massive shout out to you, the listener of the Desert Tiger podcast, because without you, we have nobody to entertain. No reason to do this at all. So without you, we wouldn't do this. And we love doing this. So thank you so very much for hitting that play button or that subscribe button. Whether it's on iTunes, whether it's on Google Play, whether it's on Stitcher, CastBox, Castify, whatever you're listening on. You can find us on Facebook at Desert Tiger Entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Desert Tiger Pod. And you can find us on Instagram at Desert Tiger Podcasts. We are very thankful that you joined us here today, and we have a very special episode for you next Thursday. If you are in the pop punk scene, maybe you've heard of Calling All Captains. Maybe you know that Calling All Captains are about to depart ways with their singer on a show that happens today when this releases. But don't worry, folks. If you can't make it to Edmonton, Alberta, I'm going for you. That's right. Desert Tiger is going to get the interview for the final show that Calling All Captains has with my good friend, Mike Milan. Thank you for listening very much to the Desert Tiger podcast. I hope you have a great day. And always, we have to leave you with a quote. I don't know where this quote comes from, so I'm very sorry, folks, but the quote for today is, "Don't fear failure. Fear being in the exact same place next year as you are today."
The Desert Tiger Podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thanks for listening.